she's so fine. Hell of a blows my mind. Hell of a lights my day.
What's good, guys? Just a few short days ago, I brought you the story of Namali Henry. She was the high school senior who was in jail in the St. Bernard Parish in Louisiana for something foolish. But she was in jail, and she had a rare but treatable blood disease. After 10 days of suffering, that included collapsing, prison guards mocking her, her cellmates and other inmates trying to get the attention of staff to say, hey, this girl is really sick, you need to help her. After 10 days of suffering, she died on a concrete bunk without her clothes on but covered in a blanket, just basically suffered to death. A slow, miserable death. She told them she was dying. Her family now has, I shouldn't say her family, her ex-boyfriend, who has custody of her child, has filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the jail. But the story doesn't end there. So because I looked up a lot of information regarding the Namali Henry case, the algorithm picked that up. And it sent me right here to this story. Mom said the deputy told her son would be all right in jail. 4 days later, he was dead. Now, this is the same exact jail, and this is a very small jail. A video I'm going to play was done by Mike Pearlstein for WWL. He did the video on the Namali Henry case, but for some reason the audio was messed up. It was going in and out, but this video is crystal clear. I love the way he does his videos, and he is an investigator that digs in with both claws. So, essentially, Marvin Walker, who was 29, was picked up on a warrant for a missed court date in December of 2020. So, in December of last year, 28 years old, I'm sorry. His cousin was actually in a holding cell when they brought him in and they crossed paths. And he said Marvin was in good spirits when he saw him and was actually watching a game, him and a deputy. And they were screaming and yelling at the TV. But Marvin Walker suffered from addiction issues, substance abuse issues. He began to withdraw, go through withdrawal symptoms, and the jail did nothing for him. He essentially died. That's not where the story ends either. There's also another inmate. Same thing. Eddie Mixon Jr. 50-year-old Eddie Mixon Jr. also died in the jail. His wife and daughter have filed a lawsuit because they refused or neglected to provide him with appropriate medical care for a heart condition and high blood pressure. And Mixon also suffered from drug addiction. Now the kicker here is that the jail had contracted through an agency called Correct Health. And this company's based in Atlanta, specializes in prison medical services. So that was their sole job there, was to provide medical care for the inmates. Now they have 2 other deaths on their hands. So Namali Henry, Marvin Walker, and Eddie Mixon Jr. That's a lot of deaths for a very small jail. Now, I'm going to play the video that goes with this because it is so awesome the way this guy does his videos. So I'm going to go ahead and kick to the video.
Well, the agonizing death of Namali Henry, who was a young mother and died inside of the St. Bernard Parish jail, sent shockwaves all the way to the Justice Department in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, and after the civil rights trial, 4 deputies are now going to prison. 7 years after Namali's death, 2 more inmates in that prison have died just in the past 2 years, leaving behind grieving families and mounting legal issues. And as investigative reporter Mike Pearlstein reveals, like Namali, their deaths could have been prevented.
Marvin Walker was brought to St. Bernard Parish Prison in December 2020 after deputies stopped him for a traffic violation and noticed an attachment for a missed court date. Walker was in good spirits, despite his issues with substance abuse and drug addiction.
Didn't seem like anything was wrong with Marvin at all. Marvin watched the whole LSU game. He and the deputy, both of them screaming and hollering at the TV.
Walker's mother, Angela, grew nervous when she heard that her 28-year-old son had been picked up. A deputy told her he would be fine, but would probably not be released until he could see a judge to get a new court date.
He said, so don't worry about him, he's gonna be all right. I was concerned because after that happened to the young lady, you know, and my son going in there with his addiction, I was worried that he seek the proper help he needs.
Like many people in St. Bernard, Angela Walker knew all about the death of 19-year-old Namali Henry at the jail in 2014. The young mother deteriorated behind bars for 10 days from a rare but treatable illness. Denied life-saving medication, denied medical help, even after fellow inmates told deputies she was dying.
Like so many people fake in jail, and the deputies use that for everybody, and that's not the case. Some people are not faking.
When that same deputy who assured Mrs. Walker came to her door again 4 days later, her heart sank. She knew.
You don't just die in jail. You know, like that, you're supposed to be there to watch over everyone that's there.
This wrongful death lawsuit against the sheriff's office on behalf of Walker's family claims he died after suffering drug withdrawal symptoms. Experts say that with proper medical care, even withdrawal by hardcore addicts can be managed. Gary Bazal, the family's attorney, says that didn't happen for Marvin Walker, and he ultimately died of complications from Xanax withdrawal.
In this case, he clearly wasn't, and deteriorated over a 3.5, 4 day period.
The lawsuit cites inmates who witnessed Walker in grave distress. While records show he was given medicine for his withdrawal symptoms, he was unable to keep the medicine down. One inmate is quoted in the suit saying he asked several times for Walker to be taken to the hospital and, quote, observed Walker at least twice to be covered in his own vomit, feces, and urine. The lawsuit states that the inmate's requests were ignored by deputies and a nurse, stating that they told him, quote, Walker would have to deal with it.
They said he was going to die. He said he was going to die, and he died. So this was absolutely preventable.
Hurts me so bad. My child, my baby boy, who I love so much.
We reached out to Sheriff Pullman for comment, but his office declined, citing the ongoing litigation. The litigation doesn't just include the wrongful death claims on behalf of Walker and Namali Henry. 3 months before Walker died, another inmate, Eddie Mixon Jr., also died in the jail. This lawsuit, filed by the 50-year-old's wife and daughter, claims that jailers, quote, refused or neglected to provide him with appropriate medical care for a heart condition and high blood pressure.
It's a relatively small jail for 3 deaths to happen in 4.5, 5 years.
Barry Bernatus is the former FBI analyst who tipped off federal agents that Namali's gradual decline was neglected by deputies. Those claims are also made in the Mixon and Walker lawsuits.
They could have saved that young woman. Even if they didn't give her a medication, they could have sent her to the hospital when she got sick. But they did nothing.
But there is one big difference between the circumstances of Namali's death and the men who died in the jail more than 5 years later. The sheriff's office hired a healthcare contractor within 2 years of her death, Correct Health, a company based in Atlanta. In the Walker lawsuit, Correct Health is also named as a defendant. Bazal said both deputies and the healthcare contractors missed Walker's obvious signs of distress, even though they were hired to handle medical screening and care of inmates, including the administration of needed medication.
Essentially, you just watch somebody die a slow death, which is what happened to Mr. Walker in this case. Nobody cared enough to do what should have been done in this case.
Bizal said that includes the sheriff.
But ultimately, he's the captain of the ship and responsible for what happens in the prison.
Angela Walker had been too distraught to publicly talk about her son's death. But after seeing troubling similarities as the Namali Henry case played out in court, she decided to break her silence to Channel 4.
And I'm just looking at how could this have happened again? Years ago it happened, now it's happening again.
I couldn't even talk about it at the moment. You know, that's how hard it hit our family.
All I have is these pictures here of my child. I could never hold it. I can never hear, I love you. People call me every day and tell me, Mommy, I love you.
That was Mike Pearlstein reporting. The attorney who filed that wrongful death lawsuit on behalf of Namali Henry's young daughter sent us a statement saying, quote, "We believe that if this case was properly investigated and handled in a more timely manner, mandated changes would have prevented the deaths of Eddie Mixon and Marvin Walker."
Something needs to be done at this jail. I would be extremely worried if a loved one were to go to that jail. There's something obviously going on there. The right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing. I don't know what it is. Just pure neglect, in other words. I know one thing, though. I will say this. In my county, in Kentucky, if you are on medication when you go into the jail, it's just too damn bad. That's real talk. Let's keep it a buck. You can be, I don't care. They will not give you your medication. And we're talking about serious life-threatening things like heart medicine, any type of medicine. You're not going to get it while you are staying in my jail. That also includes substance abuse, medication-assisted treatment, Suboxone, any of that. You will not get it in the jail. And that to me is a very scary thing, because I've heard some horror stories of people that were in our jail that suffered tremendously, who had a script for Suboxone and was in a treatment program, and they would not allow them to have their Suboxone there. So I think that needs to be addressed. I know another jail that actually does. So I guess it just depends on what jail you're in, but mine doesn't do it. And it sounds like St. Bernard Parish doesn't do it either. And that's a very scary thing when you have someone in there that relies on medication to live. So I'm going to end this story on that note, but I'm going to continue to watch the St. Bernard Parish jail, because this is a very scary place. Thanks for watching. Thanks for your time, guys. Have a great night.